Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webisode of All Politics Are Local. I'm WSAV Now reporter John Dowding. Every week, we take the time to break down some of those big headlines coming out of Washington to see how it impacts us right here in the Coastal Empire and Low Country. As always, we're being joined by WSAV Washington correspondent Kelly Meyer back in the newsroom. It must be nice to get out of the house, Kelly.
Is, and it's good to be back in the newsroom with some of my colleagues. Obviously, we're masked up and socially distant, but we're in here doing some live shots for our stations across the country. Obviously, there's always, as we say, a lot going on here in Washington. I'm excited to catch up with you about it.
Yeah, I mean, we were chatting beforehand. We were like, just a couple things going on. I guess this week your cat won't come into our session like he did last week.
That
we
was too funny.
we love having a guest appearance in the show. I mean, it breaks up all the monotony of all the craziness going on in Washington. I mean, it's been
Right.
nonstop this whole month. I mean, now we're in a whole new month here in February. Just so much more craziness going on. I just wanted to really quickly start it off by talking about some of those historic cabinet secretaries who were confirmed. Pretty big historic cabinet nominations. Now, confirmed cabinet picks. We had Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who is now Secretary Buttigieg of the Secretary of Transportation, the first openly gay confirmed cabinet secretary. A lot of other historic appointments. Kelly, talk to us about some of those other appointments and some other ones that we're seeing.
Yeah, so what we're looking at today, I mean, they are just moving through these cabinet appointments. Obviously, something that the administration had set out that they wanted to get done in as soon as Biden had his inauguration. They wanted to make sure that cabinet officials and cabinet confirmations were on the top of their list. I'm just reading off a list. We have voting on the nomination of Commerce Secretary. We have I believe we have EPA, SBA. We have Linda Thomas Greenfield as Biden's UN nominee. Tom Vilsack as Ag Secretary returning. Dennis McDonough on Veterans Affairs, and Alejandro Mayorkas confirmed yesterday to serve on DHS. There's just a list of historic appointments and first-time appointments for many of these positions, and definitely trying to break the mold with many of these as they head into their roles in these administration positions. Some of them are getting confirmed, some of them are just being voted on. So we are anticipating maybe to complete this cabinet bill by maybe next week or the week after, so by mid-February.
And I think President Biden now has gotten really lucky over the fact that Democrats have control of both chambers of commerce. That's just pushing Congress, I should say. That's pushing, I mean, all of his nominations through. We're seeing the largest pushback we saw was with Alejandro Mayorkas, his confirmation to Homeland Security. But because Democrats have majority of the chamber, they were able to get away with that with only a couple Republican votes in favor of his nomination. So yeah, Kelly, like you said, a couple more people we have to see getting confirmed before we have a full cabinet. And again, just going to see how those confirmations go. But I mean, it's just a lot of things going on in the Senate and in Congress right now. One of the big things going on that we're constantly hearing about is a conversation about COVID relief. We've been hearing this from the president before he was inaugurated on the campaign trail, trying to talk about another round of stimulus to come out to Americans who are really in need right now. We're seeing an uptick of cases. We're seeing these variants coming out that are much more that are more easily contracted. So there's a lot of hurting still going on right now. And the biggest thing that the president has talked about is bipartisanship. He ran on a message of unity. He ran on this idea of trying to bridge the gap across the aisle, to have both chambers of Congress work together. So Kelly, talk to us about those latest rounds of relief discussions. I mean, we saw last night 10 Republican senators come to the White House to talk about the plans with President Biden, who is no stranger to the Senate and no stranger to bipartisan conversations. So Kelly, talk to us about that. What are we hearing?
Yeah, I mean, right now we are waiting to hear what the deal is basically with, Republicans and Democrats. We're hearing that President Biden is set to join this weekly House Democratic caucus call by phone. And then later in the morning, he's set to meet with Democratic senators on COVID relief. really pushing for this $1 trillion proposal, despite the pushback he's getting from Republicans on Capitol Hill. He met with 10 GOP senators on Monday at the White House, trying to hash out a bipartisan agreement. But really, they are continuing to push for this 1.9, this nearly $2 trillion proposal. And they are taking the steps now in Congress to essentially do this by budget reconciliation. Is they're really setting up the framework to do it with that special procedure, which would really allow them to move this forward without Republican support, potentially no Republican support. So, and that's something that Schumer seemed to say that President Biden was for, that budget reconciliation process. Take a listen to what he had to say in the press conference on Tuesday.
Look, there's going to be a process, as we said. We believe we have very strong support for a bold, strong plan on the level of what the president proposed. All the details are going to be worked out as we go through the committee process, and we hope Republicans will join us, but we are not going to dilute this so it doesn't help the American people get out of this crisis quickly.
It's funny you mentioned budget reconciliation, because that was something I've been seeing out of the headlines this morning, which kind of signaled a sort of change in the tide of what it seemed like Democrats are trying to do in order to get around the past. I mean, again, like we were talking about, Biden has been about unity, been about bipartisan. A viable option. It may not be. Using budget reconciliation may just be a way for Democrats to use their majority power to be able to try to get this passed. So I think it's an interesting path ahead. I mean, I saw earlier this morning that Democrats are trying to get it some sort of latest round of stimulus done by mid-March. So, I mean, I think we'll just be seeing that come out in the next couple of weeks. And something else, too, I wanted to touch on as well is talking about another busy topic in the Senate right now is the impeachment proceedings of former President Donald Trump. We saw his lawyers, his impeachment lawyers left, and then he got new ones, and they're basically using they're basically just saying that, it's unconstitutional to try a former president for impeachment. Where Democrats are saying he was impeached by the House during his term, and this is just part of the process, and that's what they are arguing. But again, there's still a lot up in the air of whether or not this is actually going to go through. Republicans are honest, to call a spade. Republicans' messaging is all over the place right now, especially with Marjorie Taylor Greene and her coming out and all of these things of all of these negative things she said over the years about other members of Congress and whatnot. So Republicans' messaging is all over the place. So we really don't know how Republicans are feeling about impeachment. So Kelly, what can you tell us at all about impeachment? What are you hearing from some of our Republican members and even the Democratic ones who are ready to have this trial go forth?
Yeah, it's really a mix, like you mentioned. For many Republicans I talked to, they, especially House or Senate, don't want to go forward with this impeachment process. They believe it should end, including Lindsey Graham. And then, even Democrats are, pretty much know how this is going to end. All sides really know that the votes to convict the president or former president just aren't there. So, to waste any time on impeachment, to some, as they're saying, is not worth it as they have COVID. Cabinet committee members, and that's coming from Democratic senators as well, saying that they want to get back to what's most important. Senator Tim Kaine told me that his priorities were cabinet picks and COVID, not necessarily impeachment. So it's very interesting to see. But as you saw, Schumer's press conference yesterday, not only touching on COVID, touching on impeachment, believing that they need to move forward with this, and also vote to convict the president.
And I wanted to ask too, Kelly, when is that trial set to start? Because there was a little bit of confusion. There was a pause on it, and weren't really 100% sure. When is that trial starting?
Yeah, expect to hear the arguments beginning next week. So as soon as next week. So it's interesting, today I was covering all morning that the U.S. Capitol Police officer that died as a result of the attack, that was 4 weeks ago today. He is lying in honor in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda this morning. And then a week from now, we will be hearing the arguments in the Senate impeachment trial of former President Trump that have to do with the insurrection at the Capitol. So it's been a very interesting few weeks, very busy that all of this has happened in the span of those 4 weeks, but this will be continuing on into next week as well.
What else are you looking ahead towards this week, Kelly? What else are you keeping your eyes on?
Definitely keep an eye on that COVID relief. We're getting new, more and more developments, new developments every hour, especially with this morning happening with the president's calls with both Democratic senators and Democratic House members. Definitely COVID. There's always been increasing updates on impeachment. You know, there was a letter from 570 House and Senate aides pleading with senators to vote to convict the president, former President Trump. So following that as well, definitely, as you mentioned, the relationship between the Republican Party here as they decide who will be on the committees, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether she will serve on her committees or not. And same thing with Republican Liz Cheney, who voted to impeach the president. Will she remain in leadership? So some big decisions ahead as well for the balance of power in the parties here on Capitol Hill.
And it's funny too because I saw a recent article here coming out of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution talking about the Republican Party here in Georgia, saying that amongst the Republican Party here in Georgia, there seems to be greater support for I don't want to say greater support for impeachment, but there seems to be a growing divide amongst the Republican Party here within the state over Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying a majority of Republicans in the state here saying that she does not represent the Republican Party in her own state. She does not represent the Republican Party. And just honestly, the polling showed just greater fractions growing in the party here in this state that flipped blue for the first time in almost 20 years. So definitely, like you said, Kelly, going to keep an eye on COVID relief next week. We're going to see how impeachment proceedings begin, and just really keep an eye on some of those final cabinet and picks that are getting going through their confirmation proceedings. But thank you, as always, Kelly, for speaking with us today and helping us break down all of this as in the president's first 100 days.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, as always, and I will see you guys next week.
As always, you can see more of Kelly's stories on our website. Just go to wsav.com/Washington. You can catch up on previous episodes of All Politics Are Local on our website as well. Just go to wsav.com/allpoliticsarelocal. Thank you so much again for watching. I'm John Dowding. We'll see you again next week on All Politics Are Local.